Hi everyone, and thanks for joining the Innovate at Work digital series. Today we'll be discussing how collaboration tools enhance customer experiences and creativity. As most of us know, today work gets done anywhere with modern tools that allow teams to share ideas and work better together. Whether you're on your way to the office and working on your phone or flying cross-country and using in-flight Wi-Fi, we are constantly connected to our colleagues, customers, and partners. Cloud-based collaboration tools are helping organizations with both strategic business challenges and daily operations. They spur growth, innovate culture, engage the workforce, and help put customers to the forefront of all business decisions. Let's introduce our guests today. First, we have Ben Cooper, Group Innovation Director at M&C Saatchi, and TJ Kitt, a Senior Analyst at Forrester Research. Thank you for joining us today, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Between TJ and Ben, I think we'll get a good understanding of how collaboration strengthens customer experience, in particular covering these three things: how open information sharing strengthens customer experiences, the power of cloud-based collaboration tools like Drive and Apps for Work to facilitate information sharing, and how focusing on customer experience and engaged employees produces strategic results. With that in mind, TJ, let's get right into it. You research customer experience quite extensively. As you've taken a look at this topic, can you speak to your research, namely why the link between employee productivity and collaboration and the customer experience are so important now?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing we have to establish is that the information workforce, so those that are using a computing device at least 1 hour a day or more, are inherently customer-oriented. So if we kind of break that down, 2/3 of the information workforce either help their organizations understand their customers or directly support their customers or do some combination of those two things. And if you're going to accurately and kind of effectively employ those employees to continuously help your customers as well as help your organization understand them so that you can improve your products and services, you're going to have to be able to process a lot of information and do so quicker than your competition, which is something that I refer to as an information advantage. Now, what an information advantage actually means is kind of what I've alluded to. It's the ability of an organization to capture information, ingest it, process it, analyze it, and use it more quickly than that competition. But if you're going to create that information advantage inside of your organization, you're going to have to provide those information workers what I like to refer to as freedom of action. Freedom of action has three parts to it. That first part is what we've been talking about all along, which is that ability to access and use information. But that's not useful if you don't give those employees the ability to use that information with other individuals, to interact with them as necessary. So that's the second element of freedom of action. The third element is to take that information, to take those interactions with others and use them irrespective of your location, so that ability to move, which is the third element of freedom of action. And it's those three things that help organizations kind of create that competitive edge here in this kind of what we at Forrester refer to as the age of the customer.
Got it. So information workers are inherently customer-oriented and they need the freedom and speed to meet those customer needs or help understand those customers. Got it. So let's jump over to Ben for a moment. Most folks know M&C Saatchi as a global brand committed to brilliant marketing. As TJ mentioned, collaboration is changing the way businesses work, and you're one of those businesses embracing information through better collaboration. Can you give us a brief introduction to M&C Saatchi, what you do, and why you have embraced collaboration as a focus in your agency ecosystem?
Sure. So M&C Saatchi is going to be 20 years old this year, which is very exciting. I think we're a brand that has always iterated and innovated itself, making sure that we move with our customers. My role at M&C Saatchi in Sydney is Group Innovation Director, and that means that I'm driving a culture of innovation across our 400 or so employees. But also, I'm constantly pushing the ways that we're working to ensure that we're fit for really the challenge of this fragmented media landscape, but also making sure that the work that we create resonates across those channels. So cloud-based tools such as Google Apps and Drive ensure that we bring everyone together around a common purpose and mean that we can create faster, but also we can create smarter, and therefore our work stays world-class and ensures that we live up to what M&C Saatchi is about.
Thanks, Ben. So M&C Saatchi has certainly established itself as a creative leader in the advertising space, and as we all know, positive customer relationships are critical towards keeping and developing business. So TJ, can you elaborate on the importance of collaboration to the customer experience?
Let's take one step back, though, if I may, and talk about kind of what creates successful customer experiences. Now, what creates a successful customer experience is what we at Forrester refer to as your customer experience ecosystem. And this is the interplay of your employees, your partners, and your customers, all in the context of your operating environment. And that environment can be your regulatory environment, your competitive environment, the policies that you have inside of your organization, the technology you use, and so on. Now, those relationships between people, those partners, employees, and customers that are coming together, is really only held together if that group of people feels like they have something valuable that they're gaining from that relationship. So we call this kind of a reciprocal exchange of value that's necessary in order to hold these groups together. Your employees play a very important role here in helping deliver that value to both your partners and customers. So if we kind of think about that, what's really going to make that exchange possible is communication and collaboration. And if we look at the information workforce, we see that 79% of information workers work directly with customers, while 65% work with partners. So you have kind of this environment in which these customer-oriented employees are also very engaged in your ecosystem. And if they're going to maintain that engagement to help push your products and services forward, they're going to need a common collaborative platform to facilitate those interactions. And that's where cloud collaboration technology comes into play.
So how does this pan out specifically? What does open information sharing actually provide?
So if we think about kind of open information sharing in these cloud platforms, it provides three things. First and foremost is this idea of providing an actual view of what's going on inside of experience ecosystem. So if you think about kind of an executive abstracted from kind of the customer or the partner relationships because they're recessed back in the organization and not having those day-to-day interactions, it becomes very difficult for them to get a sense of what's happening on the street. And information, therefore, is kind of trickling back to them, and they need that kind of information to make decisions. So what collaboration technology does is it provides the ability for employees that are having those direct interactions with your partners and with your customers, a communication channel back into the organization to allow decision makers, be it decision makers around products, services, support, and so on, to have a complete view of what's happening on the street and make adjustments accordingly.
So open information is kind of a democratization of decision making.
Exactly. Well, it's a democratization of kind of the ability to surface ideas and information that then feed into decision making. So you actually provide employees that are on the front lines, guys that may not have had a voice before in some of these conversations, a chance to contribute meaningfully. So you're opening up the ability for more people to contribute to the conversation, which will then influence the decision making, which increases things like employee engagement, because now I feel like my contributions to the business actually have value, and I'm not just here punching a clock every single day.
Thanks, TJ. So Ben, how are you seeing your collaboration initiative play out tactically? Have you seen shifts in employee habits, or maybe in the way that you interact with customers?
I tell you what, I'm that with a great quote from Henry Ford, and he said, "There is a beginning, keeping together is progress, but working together is success." And what we are on and right now is a journey. We have these tools in place, and in fact, what we found when we put enterprise Google Apps in is that most of our employees were using it anyway in their own personal lives. And so the adoption has been quite rapid. But what it's meant is the fact that we are driving this sort of company culture towards more conversation in the actual active documents itself, rather than always sort of resorting to email threads, which can be quite overwhelming in this sort of information age. I think we can all relate to the inbox overflowing. But the tools have enabled everyone to come together around a project or a cause more easily. And in doing so, that sort of transparency and allowing information to flow means that we can build better and more solid ideas that really help to solve clients' problems more effectively. Also, the other factor is that in this sort of modern media space, that we need all these different specialists to come together. So these tools are sort of made for that, and that helps us know when to sort of keep that collaboration heart going and really show people the benefits of being transparent.
So Ben, how has collaboration been impactful culturally and on a day-to-day basis at M&C Saatchi? You mentioned the need to bring folks together, but how was that playing out before, and how is it different now?
I think everyone loves a meeting, but whether those meetings are productive is another thing altogether. I think what we've seen now is the fact that everyone is, I think everyone's valued their time before, to be truthful, but this is highlighted really action-orientated work, and that means that the right cast is now physically in the room, but also the right cast is online too. So we can bring the people that are required to contribute to a solution around that more easily, whether it be from a remote location, through their mobile, to even locally in the building. We struggle from the fact that we're across many floors, just like any other business. So having technology that can bring us all together and highlight that we're essentially in the same room, as in we can see each other in the documents that we're creating, means that we can get to answers faster. It also breaks down hierarchies with regard to, I suppose, how ideas are often built, and that means that we get to solutions faster. I think on top of that, it really keeps us honest with one another, and by doing so, we can highlight the sort of shining stars that often don't get a voice, perhaps in the environment of a meeting where perhaps job title and personas might take precedent. They can now get their ideas out in the open, and ultimately we're a business that uses creativity to overcome business challenges, so it's important that we can get ideas from everywhere.
It's great to see that kind of ideation happening from the account executive to the VP. And we're seeing how collaboration tools can increase productivity as well across a whole ecosystem of an organization. TJ, over to you. How many CIOs have been seeing the benefits of moving their collaboration tools to the cloud? Is this a trend that you're seeing accelerating?
I do. And congratulations to you and your competitors on preparing the market for that. But we've been tracking collaboration service implementation since 2011 in our surveys. And if we go back to that time, 56% of software decision makers said that their organizations were either interested in or already had implemented collaboration software as a service. If we roll forward to 2014, the last time that we conducted that survey, we see that 73% of software decision makers had already decided that they were either interested in or already were implementing collaboration technology. Now, what's important to note in that 73% number in 2014 is that that was the first year that we saw an actual switch from organizations primarily looking at the cloud as a way of complementing their on-premises collaboration technology to actually replacing most, if not all, of their collaboration technology. So it's really, the marketplace has really changed, and it's really kind of moving in that direction.
And so why is cloud overtaking on-prem in this way, and how exactly does the cloud magnify these tools, be it driver apps, mobile messaging, CRM with social features? How are they making an impact?
Sure. So there are three things that I like to talk about here. First is this idea of opening up access to information to all constituents within the customer experience ecosystem. So if I think about a construction concern over in the UK that decided to start using a cloud-based file sharing technology, the reasons why they did this were to first allow for their employees that were working both behind and outside the firewall to have access to content. But then second, it became very important for them to provide a working environment for those internal parties and their customers. This is a construction concern, so they're working on blueprints, they're working on compliance and things of that nature, and they need to have those collaborative interactions in a way that's simple for all parties to access, which is what the cloud provided. You didn't have to bring people behind your firewall or set up an FTP site or something of that nature. So that's the first thing. The second thing I like to talk about is allowing all employees to choose their collaborators. So we had a conversation with one IT leader who said, look, I don't want to be in the business of telling the business who they can and can't work with. I want to be able to provide them the ability to make those decisions and then step back and more or less administer the whole environment, ensuring that they don't kind of reveal too much, but basically allow them to invite in who they think is necessary in order to get the job done. And so if we kind of look at what a lot of these cloud-based collaboration technologies allow for, it's for you to send out an invitation to a document and invite people in and have those interactions around that piece of content without necessarily having to go through a lot of laborious processes to get the IT department to open up access to something. And then finally, there's this idea of creating transparency within processes. So I'll refer to some of the stuff that I see clients doing with your technology. So if you look at a professional services firm, for example, that's working through a contract or a statement of work with a client, the ability to throw that into kind of a collaborative editing environment in which you and I can both look at this simultaneously, it allows for those organizations to kind of open up kind of the process to those external parties, allowing them to be completely participant in it, so that everyone has a clear understanding of what the decision making is, the rationale behind those decisions, and kind of how they can work together to create successful outcomes over time.
Speaking of transparency, Ben, how specifically are you seeing better transparency play out at M&C Saatchi with Google Apps? We talked a little bit about this before, but specifically within the Google Apps tools you're using, what are you seeing?
Yes, look, I mean, I think transparency is key, but I think to start with, people are a little bit nervous about exposing themselves. But I find that ultimately it leads to better collaboration if they do. So by example, when we're creating decks using slides, it's invaluable to be able to work in real time and see the thread of an argument or a solution that we're sort of communicating through a number of slides. What's great is the fact that the primary author can lay out the flow, and then different contributors can add their pieces to the puzzle. Ultimately, this means that we can get to the answer faster. Equally, one of the things that we do quite a lot in our industry is award entries and things like that. And what you find is you're bringing everything from analysts to creatives to everyone to work on that. And I can tell you that it works extremely well when you're racing towards a deadline to get all that information into a submission. So we honestly, I can't imagine not using these tools now. And it ultimately means that the real-time nature stops us treading over each other. When at first I think it's seen as right, is actually seen as making sure that we're concentrating on the area that needs concentration, which means we get to the solutions a lot faster. The final part is also sort of design files. We create a lot of information, and shifting that around the business is both cumbersome sometimes, but using direct file transfer means that we can get those files to people quickly. They can review, edit, amend, and send back. But I suppose the point here is they're not sending. It's the fact that they're meeting online in an actual space to contribute to that outcome, which means we get there faster. And I know that producers, it allows them a lot more sense of control because they can see when people have viewed files over amended files, which means we can move a lot faster.
So internally, there's the introduction of speed and ease, but in an agency environment, you're also working very closely with many external clients and partners. Have you seen your clients adopt similar ways of collaborating, or are they collaborating within your app's environment?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. We have a lot of different clients with a lot of different IT infrastructures, and some are more paranoid than others. The reality is, though, that most clients have had a shared experience with this and applaud it. They see that we get to solutions faster. In my own job, I work quite a lot with senior stakeholders, and we might be talking at a conference together or preparing a deck that may be going into the leadership team. When we work in that way, it works extremely well, and they can see the benefits. With other clients, we're working across the board that way, and it's becoming second nature. But like I said, there's certain boundaries that you face with different client setups. And due to that, we have to adapt. And I guess the thing is, what we see is the fact that people do see the benefit of coming together in cloud-based. Whether or not they can actually do it's another thing. But you often find that they have a personal device that lets them come in and contribute in that way. So whether that's frowned upon or not is another thing, but I think it might indicate things need to go, and the fact that we'll start to all align and make life a lot easier for us to sort of come to the solutions faster.
So these tools and their uses and changes of user behavior, both internally and externally, all sound great in theory. But TJ, how do you really quantify the impact that a collaborative ecosystem brings?
Yeah, I guess that's the $10 million question. But there's no real magic bullet to this thing. So, some organizations will look at net promoter scores, some will look at customer satisfaction, some will look at top and bottom line numbers, some will try to figure out some measurement of employee productivity. But there's, those things are all really dependent on the preference. And at the end of the day, it's really difficult to attribute causation to any one of or causation for any one of those numbers moving to the collaborative technology in and of itself. So what I like to do is kind of walk back to kind of this original idea that we had around creating an information advantage, because that's really what's going to be important in this day and age for helping organizations really to steal a march on their competition. And when you kind of focus in on that information advantage, then you start to address the questions of what is it that I need my workforce to do? And then how should I begin to enable those employees to do those things to help them be productive, help them drive innovation, things of that nature. And so that becomes kind of the focal point of what the collaboration portfolio should look like, how it should be deployed, and then ultimately kind of how we address the success or failure of it in relationship to the information advantage that we seek to have in the marketplace.
Can you give us an example of how increased productivity has delivered results for you and your clients, Ben?
Yes, of course. I think what TJ says about the information advantage is prevalent in this example. Last year we created Optus Clever Buoy, which is a smart ocean buoy that detects sharks and alerts lifeguards. This sort of breakthrough technology involved a lot of people coming together. Yes, we had the idea, but we needed marine tech teams to come around the problem to understand how we would use sonar. We needed data analysts to work on what essentially is facial recognition for sharks to identify their unique swimming patterns. What this meant was we had to bring lots of stakeholders from disparate locations together, and that's not always possible to get them in a room. So it was critical that we used these types of solutions to help us accelerate building the minimal viral product, which is the Optus Clever Buoy. I guess my point here is the fact that we're overcoming problems in radically different ways. As you can see with something like Clever Buoy, we've created a product that can truly make a difference to Australians' lives, but the skills that are required to build something like that means that you've got to bring people from all around the world and all around Australia. That simply wouldn't be possible without tech like this. And I think the thing is the investment in cloud-based solutions is in many ways a fraction of the expense of what was proprietary licensed software in the past, but also has the benefit that we're all meeting together online. So the value to ourselves as a team, but also the value to our clients is incredible, both in what we can create, but also the cost saved by flying people around the country, as well as all of the original expenses that would have existed.
That's such a cool technology. I feel like the folks at Amity and Jaws could have really used the Clever Buoy.
Yes.
I think we've covered a lot around the collaboration tool sort of what we're bringing to the table with apps, the way that that's manifesting with M&C Saatchi, and then some of TJ's thoughts around how the information worker and the customer connection is so close, and how collaboration tools facilitate a better experience. I have a couple of concluding questions for both of you, especially as you two really look towards the future and as many more collaboration tools are popping up within this ecosystem. TJ, is there a specific area that really excites you?
Yeah, so what I've begun looking at is the overlay of cognitive computing and machine learning technologies on these collaborative environments. And kind of the promise there really is this idea that if we can make employees more aware of the information that they have in their environment and the expertise that they have in their environment, make them more prescient about kind of what they'll need to bring into upcoming meetings and the context that they need to have in order to make those meetings fruitful, and more adaptable and fluid situations, allowing them to make better decisions in that moment of need, then overall the business will make better decisions. But it's really kind of at that ground level of bringing in those machines and that technology that allows for the aggregation of a lot of information, the analyzation of a lot of information, and then the dissemination of the fruits of that analysis to employees so that they have the necessary context and the necessary insight in order to make those decisions kind of that they weren't able to do before, having that broader perspective brought to them by kind of this combination of technologies.
So I think that's really interesting, given that cognitive computing and AI really allow people to get the information they need, maybe even before they know they need it. Ben, what are you seeing as the major developments and trends in the collaboration space, and how are you ensuring that you're future-proofing M&C Saatchi?
Firstly, I think cognitive computing, it's like a dream come true. If someone could be one step ahead of me, that would be fantastic. The other aspect is, I guess, the mobilization. We all live through these tiny screens now, but let's really highlight, I guess, the importance of being able to actually get to information, but also contribute to it. I think, we've always been able to open files, but actually to add to them on the move, that's where the difference really comes. The other factor is making sure that we drive a culture of collaboration. So we're building in KPIs for our workers that really reward them and encourage them to collaborate. And that's so critical to our success. We're obviously in the business of our human capital, the fact that we attract creative people from all around the world to work on big problems for clients, but what we need to make sure is that they are encouraged to work together to make truly significant and breakthrough work. The other factor is also we're a network. We have offices all around the world, and we're building innovation capability as well as insight on the work that we do for a variety of different clients in lots of different markets. We already have things like Google Plus Communities set up, which allows us to share work but also share insights from different markets. What I see is the fact that that sort of network brain will give us an advantage to not only accelerate, solutions to certain problems in different markets, but also the fact that keep our staff on top of what's truly breaking through right now. And we have incredible brains all around the world, and it would be so amazing if we could all be in the same room together, but it's simply not possible. So having things like this that allow us to all come together, easily index information, find technology that gives us an advantage can only make our business better and give us another 20 years of success.
Thanks everyone for joining today's Innovate at Work. Collaborate to delight customers Hangout on Air. To learn more about Google for Work, please visit google.com/work. Thank you.
We need the freedom to work wherever life takes us. And today, Ariel is in Tokyo, Nicole's on a plane, Drew is in a taxi, and you're trying to keep your project moving forward. Get it done with Google Drive for Work. Drive for Work comes with unlimited storage, so all your work is available, no running out of space. You can even upload 5 terabyte files, if you have a file that big. Drew shares a file to Ariel's inbox. She can preview it and send back ideas without any software. Nicole needs to update a Microsoft Word file from an external vendor, so she uses Office Compatibility Mode to edit directly on her phone. She could also edit Microsoft Office from any computer in her browser without additional software. Encryption keeps your files safe in Drive, and e-discovery, auditing, and controls make it easy for IT admins to manage. Like when Drew leaves his tablet in the taxi, your admin can simply wipe the confidential files from his device. Drew lost his tablet before he could share the final logo. The only other copy is on Nicole's computer at the office. But because Nicole uses the Drive desktop application, files on her computer are available anywhere Drive is installed, so she can share the file from her phone at the airport and keep the project moving forward. Google Drive, all your work, safe, available everywhere, and easy to share.